All right, great. Well, I appreciate Felisa and Samuel having us today. And my name is Joy Ivester, and I'm with the Transition Alliance of South Carolina. And today we're going to talk a little bit about graduation rates, how to improve dropout prevention programs, and increase outcomes for students with disabilities, as well as all students. So hopefully, by the end of this session, you'll have some idea of how you can take this work back to your own community and improve practices. And we're going to provide some resources for you to share back in your community as well. So just a little quick overview of what we're going to talk about, the Transition Alliance of South Carolina, and why we're doing this work and why it's important, and how we're doing the work in South Carolina. And then again, sharing back some resources that you can take and use back in your own district. So just to get started and give you an idea of who our team is and why we're at the table with regard to dropout prevention, we are one of four technical assistance centers that is funded by the South Carolina Department of Education's Office of Special Education Services. We fall under a group of technical assistance centers that include others that are focused on behavior, academic supports, K through 12, and then early intervention. And then our focus, of course, is on those older students in transition. We're housed at the University of South Carolina Center for Disability Resources, which is a university affiliated program, which each state has a USAID program that houses a multitude of other programs and practices that support individuals across the lifespan. Our primary focus is to support local education agencies, school districts, communities to improve special education practices, services, and outcomes, with a specific focus on secondary transition, evidence-based practices, and improving graduation and dropout rates for students with disabilities. So for years, we've really had that primary focus on secondary transition, those functional skills and academic supports that are needed to help students be successful in the classroom and in post-school life. And we've had an added focus on dropout prevention and graduation rates just over the past 4 years. So we're going to talk a little bit more about what that looks like as we go along today. And I found the first mistake on the slide. I said I was going to call myself out because I knew I'd find it. Um, so why are we talking about graduation and dropout? And you're here today, so you probably have some similar concerns in your own state as well. In South Carolina, the 2024 graduation rate for all students averaged at 85.4%. And I put in the national graduation rate beside that, kind of so you could see where we fell in comparison to the national averages at 86.4%. So we're just below that. And I think it's important to note because 85.4, you're like, it's a well above average. That's a C, right? Or a B, right? But the reality in South Carolina with that number is that we have about 200,000 high school students in any given year. And that means that 29,200 of them will drop out of school. And we know that's too many. So that seems a little bit more stark, I think, than when you look at the percentages. Um, for students with disabilities, that number is even lower. So there's a bigger concern even with those students, and that's at 60.1% in South Carolina, and the national average is about 74% for students who have an IEP. And so you can see there's a huge discrepancy between, we've got an issue statewide for all students, but it's an even larger issue that we need to focus on for students with disabilities. And I put in these two other stats for you, or data points for you. because I think they're important to see as well. And these are two student populations that also struggle with graduation and dropout prevention. And those are students that are homeless and the foster care number. And I think this always, every time I see it, it's just really upsetting to me because with the foster care, that we can get more students who are homeless across the finish line than we can for those that are in foster care. So we know those are two student populations that we've got to look out for as well. So all of that data comes from the South Carolina report cards data sets. And we know that if you're dropping out of school, that presents a whole host of problems long term for many of our young adults. They will often earn lower salaries, have difficulty finding employment. We know one of the first things you see on an application is, did you graduate from high school? What year did you graduate? And it's a huge barrier for many, for getting in the door in many companies. Um, and they often find themselves arrested, engaged in criminal activity, and since spending time incarcerated, have poor health, and relying on government assistance. And we know also that the death rate for individuals who do not have a high school diploma is 2.5 times greater than those who do. So those are some pretty important statistics that we see nationally. And we know that not only creates problems for those individuals who drop out of high school, but also for the communities in which they reside. It's an us problem, not just a them problem. So fortunately, we have a battery of strategies that we know are effective in helping to prevent dropouts. The National Dropout Prevention Center, hopefully you're aware of their existence. They actually used to be at Clemson University in South Carolina, and once federal funding kind of dried up, they have gone on to establish a nonprofit that supports districts and states across the nation in the area of dropout prevention and related areas. And they maintain a lot of literature and resources and support systems for dropout prevention. And we rely on them heavily in our state, as I know a lot of states do as well. And so they take the dropout prevention effective strategies and break them into these four groups. And that we know that leadership, learning accelerators, programs that promote success for all students, and outreach are kind of those four prongs of supports that can help improve dropout prevention practices and outcomes. So when you talk about leadership, is so important. We're going to talk a little bit more about this from the South Carolina lens in a bit, that you have a collective approach, that is a team working towards one target, that students are educated and supported, and that teachers are practicing in safe learning environment, and that you have professional learning support systems as well in place. Um, those learning accelerators that we know are those best practices for instruction for all students and universal design, that it's individualized, that learning is active and engaging, and that we use technology to promote retention and education, career and technology education, alternative education, early childhood education, and then outreach, that we have communities engaged, that we have families engaged in the process, mentoring, service learning. So you can see all of these effective strategies. And we know that if we do these things, students are more likely to get across that finish line. So I wanted to pause for a minute and ask you to respond in the chat and talk to me a little bit about strategies that you use to promote family engagement. And we know that there's some barriers there, that we struggle with families that work, all shifts, that we have some homes that are not stable and those kind of things. So in your own community, in your own district, what strategies do you use to promote family engagement? And let's just share out a bit. I'm going to pause for a few minutes, not a few minutes, a few seconds, maybe 30 seconds, to let you respond quickly to everyone in the chat and just pitch them out there. So I'm seeing family empowerment fairs. Families are one part of our person-centered planning. I think that's amazing. Ensuring that, I think when I have a example from years ago, we were working with a student in a community in South Carolina, and he had gotten to his senior year and had very few credits um, to his name. And when we got in there with the family in a person-centered planning meeting, we realized that he wasn't being put in those classes because he was being bullied. And so getting the student in the room with the parent, with the guidance counselor was so critical to open up those avenues and figure out a solution for that situation. So engaging families in that conversation is so important. So thanks, Michelle. Parent Academy Days. Aptogee is a communication tool that we use. And we're having our first parent night with different community resources for students. I think that's great. School-based deans of students, family advocates, and social workers provide individual outreach, post-secondary transition, and community agency fairs. So we're seeing a lot of really outreach using community parent information fairs, referral for community service board for wraparound services. So great. So thank you for sharing that. And I think it's really important. One of the things that at the Transition Alliance that we really do is lean heavily on our community um, experts, such as you, to support one another and making sure that all that good work that is being done is shared out. Because truly, those of you that are in the field are those that are doing the work and have the most to offer others that need the support and assistance. And we all need the support and assistance. So I wanted to talk to you a little bit about South Carolina's effort and what we're doing to support school districts across the state of South Carolina. Um, as a priority, the Department of Ed has identified improving graduation and dropout rates for students with disabilities. Um, and we have several different ways of doing that work. And one is that we collaborate with the National Dropout Prevention Center and host diploma planning institutes each year. And so through those diploma planning institutes, local high school based teams come together in one location for 3 days to learn about those best practices, analyze their own data, which we're going to talk about in a minute, and then to do some strategic planning around how to address those needs that they've identified in their district. And so that's a 3 day event. And then we provide some follow-up support in communities of practice and a team symposium, which actually I say we've done this. The team symposium this year will be our first year doing that, but we've provided ongoing communities of practice for those local teams and check-ins. So those are typically held in June or July of each year. Again, we contract with the National Dropout Prevention Center and we collaborate with the Office of Student Support that supports attendance and at risk at the Department of Education to carry those out. One, we know that every school district that needs the support can't take 3 days away from their job to come in and do this planning. And two, we know that the date's not always good for some. And three, we know that we're limited in the number of districts that we can host at each one of those events. And so we provide ongoing support to districts that are interested in addressing dropout prevention as well. And that individualized technical assistance pathway, we're going to talk through in just a second. And this is where we can share resources with you and provide you with any support that you need to access those materials. And that's basically in developing a graduation team and collecting data that is specific to identifying students that are at risk for dropping out of school, developing early warning systems, and implementation. So this early warning team guide is available if you use this QR code, or you can go to our website and capture that. And I see Sam also posted in there that you're going to get the slides, so you'll be able to reference all of these materials after the presentation as well. So quickly, when we're working with a district and going down this individualized pathway for team assistance, we help them to form a graduation team. Sometimes there's a graduation team already in place, or there's some semblance of one in place, but ensuring that all of the appropriate members are at the table is really critical as well, and that it's a well-rounded team. This picture to the right is a team that we have worked with over the last few years from Union County in South Carolina, along with Peter Coip, who is our Office of Special Education Services Director. And this team has done some fabulous work using really few resources, just good people that really care about their students and digging in to collaborate to make a difference. And they've been able to move the needle in South Carolina, which is really exciting. But some potential team members that we suggest, and again, this is all in that guide that we referenced in the previous slide. Your building administrators, they are the bottom line for pushing this forward, making sure that it's supported, and ensuring that the programs and practices that are prescribed in that strategic plan can be supported and are advocated for as well. Content area teachers, we know it's really important that these students are successful in their content area. So making sure that those teachers are at the table, especially Algebra 1, we know is a big barrier for our students. Getting students through English is really critical as well. Special education teachers, again, we know going back to the previous slide that students with disabilities represent a large percentage of our students who are dropping out of high school. And we also know that the largest percentage of students with disabilities served in high schools are students with learning disabilities. So it's really important that we have those content area teachers and the special education teachers who know how to support students and modify instruction and can collaborate with those content area teachers and potentially have the relationship with those students right at the table. School counselors, they can help with scheduling courses. They can help with collaborating across those departments. It's really important as well. And they know also, they're keenly aware of what it takes for these students to get across, all students to get across the finish line. A lot of schools have graduation coaches in place, and that's great. Absolutely should be at the table. And then as we'll talk about in a minute, attendance is a big part of promoting graduation and ensuring students are completers. So those data specialists or attendance clerks that have access to that data and can and share it and analyze it are really important as well. There may be other people, that are important to bring to the table too. Oftentimes, you'll see student advocates in the form of a custodian or someone who works in the lunchroom or someone who works in the front office that may not be certified instructors or teachers, but they really have their fingers on the pulse of student needs, and it makes total sense to bring those individuals into this graduation team to ensure that you have a well-rounded approach. So then you get them to the table. The next step It's identifying the problem. You have to know what the issue is in order to address it. So, um, attend that with identifying students who are at risk, we often look at attendance, behavior in the form of suspensions and expulsions, and course completion. And so through the work that we do, we have a data collection tool that we use to collect and analyze that information for the districts. We work with them to complete it. And then some districts that we've also worked with have a way and track class progress and overlay that with diploma progress as well. But the ABC data is really important, and we encourage districts to look at all students and then also look at students with disabilities because that's where our funding comes from as well and where our primary focus is. I will say, and going back to the previous slide, with the team, what we found very quickly is that this work cannot be done in isolation. It has to be done in collaboration with general education, and it truly, I think, underscores that our students who have an IEP are general education students first. This work has to be promoted and done by the general education population, but we've got to have special education to the table because we have an understanding of the unique needs and strategies that students are, need in order to be successful. So data collection analysis, the second step that we take is helping a school take a look at what they have in place already, using those strategies and best practices that we referenced in the earlier slide with the foundational strategies and so forth. We look, what are we doing well? And I think that's really important to kind of celebrate the things that are being done well because we know that every school is doing something to promote graduation and help build success for students. So, are we targeting the right students with those strategies that we're using? If we're tutoring, are we ensuring that we're keeping track of students that are on, that have been identified as needing support in Algebra 1 and getting all of those students to the table? Is it mandated that they're tutored? Are we ensuring that they're getting support from teachers that are equipped to present information in an alternate format? And are we targeting the right areas instead of just making assumptions, really looking at what's in place now, what may need to be adjusted, and where the gaps are? And so we work with districts to take a look at that piece as well. So the next step is installing an early warning system. And hopefully, um, you've heard of this before. A lot of districts already have this in place. And so it may be tweaking this, taking a look at what's already in place, or revisiting it to ensure that it is meeting the needs of the current student population that's at risk for dropping out. So this is a student-based system that's used to identify students who exhibit behavior or academic performance that puts them at risk of dropping out of school, and also helps to identify those interventions that will improve graduation outcomes. So walking school teams through that. Research says that with early warning systems, and we talked about this a little bit earlier, attendance, behavior, and course performance are powerful predictors of high school completion. And that grade 9 course performance in particular was shown to correlate strongly with high school graduation. So for example, in one of the districts that we worked with, they had a ninth grade academy where they brought in students that were identified through their eighth grade um, data that they were at risk of dropping out once they hit high school. So making sure they captured them before they got to high school and then supported them throughout the year and kind of kept tabs on them. So when you look at early warning system interventions, a lot of these strategies are things that your school may already have in place. So I think it's kind of exciting to see. Tap yourself on the back for the good work that you're already doing. And I won't read through this list, but tutoring, credit recovery, when you have a student that's missing more school or struggling with a certain class, having parent and student meetings, assigning a mentor, are all strategies that can be used. It's just important to make sure that, again, you've identified the correct problem and that you've identified the correct student to match the strategy. So I think this is one thing and that we all run into, right? That we get bogged down in the struggle and the problem. And there are so many components of education that are in life in general that our students face that are outside of our control. There are so many that are inside of our control, but it's important for the team to focus on those things that are within the control of that group. So some examples are poverty, or parents who don't value education because they may themselves have been dropouts, teens that become pregnant or need to stay at home because of that. Migrant families is another one. So we're going to pause really quickly in the chat and share other obstacles that can leave students at risk. And then ask yourself, are they within the control of your team or not? So if you don't mind taking maybe a minute and responding to this prompt. Bueller. I got one. Okay. Single parents with multiple jobs, not able to spend much time with their children. Displacement due to natural disasters. Good. Sickness, transportation issues. And transportation would be the only one within our team's control. So let me ask this. Single parents with multiple jobs not able to spend as much time with their children. What's one strategy that a district could potentially use to overcome that, just in theory? Early school care and after school care. I love it. Thank you, Elizabeth. After school programs, Vaughn. That's great. I know in one school in our district that, they've eliminated homework so that on a block schedule, that students are provided with time to do their work with the support of school staff. All right. Good. Thank you. So, step four, setting a goal and developing a plan. So, this is an example to the right of a graduation plan that was developed by a school district in South Carolina. And this is just an example, but they targeted graduation rates for all students and graduation rates for students with disabilities because, again, it's important, and I'll tell you, it's important for those building principals, those building level administrators, that their dropout rates are low and their graduation rates are high. So if we can help them by increasing the graduation rates of students with disabilities, we're going to be helping them do their job as well. And then the goals were increasing the graduation rate from 2023 to 2025 as reflected in the data report card. And then the graduation rate for students with disabilities. This specific team was focusing on attendance and how they were going to address attendance for students. So they met with students who had 3 or more consecutive absences, and identified solutions for those and tracked that. It's really important, and one of the things that we kind of keep in our bumper guards is that evidence-based evidence-based practices are used for those goals and for those interventions as districts and teams go along. That we're not just focusing on good ideas, but we're making sure that there's research behind the work that they're doing. So some of the things that we've learned from our districts along the way, um, is, we hear this again and again. One, stop admiring the problem, and we talked about that a little bit. We need to address things that can be addressed by the schools. Um, Finding people that care that really are bought into this and addressing this issue. We've seen districts that were really struggling and the community was impoverished, employment was low, um, and they just cared enough to track their students, and establish I think they called it a war room. And they had a locked room and they post all of their students on the wall with, with the identified strategy for improving outcomes, and weekly track those students. They knew who they were, and were able to bump their graduation rates by a number of students over just one year. Knowing the students as individuals, not as data points, letting them know that somebody cares about them as individuals. And we've heard that money is helpful, but it's not a necessity. It's good people like you being here doing good work. You don't need a grant. It'd be nice. You don't need a lot of money in order to do this work, just a plan, some collaboration, and good people. Again, that the work can't be done in silos. And I can't stress this enough. I mean, special education can't do this alone. Oftentimes, we assign someone the role of a graduation coach, but they need those teachers on the team. They need general ed, they need the special education support if those students are being targeted for interventions. We need parents. In order to make this work, it has to be done collaboratively. And is something that we continue to struggle with as the Special Education Technical Assistance Center for this. A lot of times we'll host the National Dropout Prevention Diploma Planning Institutes, and we'll get a team registered that doesn't have special education at the table, although their graduation rate for students with disabilities is much lower. So I think sometimes we get busy, and we get siloed and moving in our own direction, just trying to get work done. But bringing that team approach to the table is just really critical. Finding a champion. I can't say enough about this, that one person who believes in this mission, believes that students can do and will do, given the right supports and encouragement, is really critical. Relationships, knowing your students and who you're fighting for. School-wide communication, again, it goes back. A lot of times we'll talk with districts that have great programs and practices in place, but not everybody's on board. Not everybody knows what the other is doing. So ensuring that that communication is school-wide and that everybody has a piece of that knowledge and support system. Knowing your data is critical. So important. to make a plan based on your data, and then going back and evaluating, is your intervention working? Do your goals need to be, and action items need to be adjusted based on what you're seeing? And keeping the end goal in mind. We want to get these kids across the finish line, get them graduated and on to adult life. So it's really important to just kind of keep those things in mind. And I think a lot of times it's those grassroots efforts that make the most difference. People knowing people, and those that just really dig in and collaborate for success. So we've seen some great, exciting early impacts with our work. And you'll see from that graph that our graduation rate is going up. And that is the performance factor one for students with disabilities, and our graduation rate with the South Carolina High School credential, which is another piece that I haven't mentioned yet. In South Carolina, we have a credential that is not a diploma, but it is a credential that is aligned with the South Carolina state standards and graduation requirements, that includes requirements for over 300 hours of work experience. And it's pretty rigorous, but we're able to track that too and incorporate that into our perspective of how students are doing with regard to completion rates. And then our dropout rates are going down as well. Not where we want them by any means or any stretch, but we're trending in the right direction here. So in year one, from 2022-23 to 23-24, we saw some good movement, as I said, but I think one of the things that really excites me the most is to see those little they're smaller, but they're big data points that really show us the impact of this work and what our districts are doing to impact students. So, one high school in South Carolina saw a 26% decrease in office referrals over 1 year. And that was based on strategies, interventions that they developed in their graduation plan. High school number two, a 46% decrease in students off grade level. I mean, wow, what an amazing trend for that high school. And then a third one, their graduation rate increased from 85.5% to 90%. So good, good progress for those districts and those schools that are just doing some really good collaborative team work. So you have an idea of what we're doing here in South Carolina and the movement that we're making, and we are again, funded by the South Carolina Department of Education, and our resources belong to the field. In that we are willing to share, we get excited about this work. We are always open to talking about this work and sharing any resources that we've developed or curated along the way. So for you, some possible next steps may be check and see if you have an early warning system or a graduation team in place in your high school. And if you do get involved, find out who's leading it and make sure that special education is at the table. And if you don't, help establish a team. Our guide that had the QR code earlier in the presentation has a information about how to establish a team from the ground up, including who the members should be, who to invite, and what the first agenda might look like. So it is a detailed guide for helping you get that started. And check out our resources. Reach out if you have any questions. Our website, the Transition Alliance South Carolina SC.org, has all of our resources on it. If you go directly to graduatesc.org, You'll be able to pull additional resources we've either created or curated there, and use those and share our resources with your team. Feel free to share this presentation or our website or any other resources with your administration or other coworkers in your high school or in your district. I will say the National Dropout Prevention Center. Again, I can't say enough about their support and that collaboration that we share with them. They are having a conference in Orlando. Every year they have a national conference. This year it's October, around October 13th, 14th, I believe. And it's amazing because it is really, the content is focused on what districts are doing in the field right now and providing resources and strategies that are real time, much less of, you know, dissertations and presentations from higher ed, although we're in higher ed, love you, higher ed. It's just really practitioner focused and make and take kind of resources. So I would encourage you, if you can't go this year, go next year. It's a great resource and a great conference. And then the Transition Alliance of South Carolina actually hosts an annual conference, and we're in Greenville, South Carolina, October 20th through the 21st of this year. And if you're interested in that, we'd love to have you. Just reach out to me and you can come alongside us. The National Dropout Prevention Center will be there, and we're also doing some content on dropout and some collaboration and teaming. So you're welcome there and to share that with your team members as well. So again, content specific on our website includes best practices, some learning modules, our training calendar, and we have an app that has over 500 transition and dropout prevention resources. You can access it by going to the website or using this QR code. A lot of it has just been curated from other sources. You can search by keyword. Some of that, we've obviously created for our districts and our state as well. So thank you for joining us today and for taking the time to learn more about what we're doing and how you can impact the field. And I think the most important thing that I've learned along the way is it just takes one person. So I encourage you to be that person and be the change that you wish to see in the world. So thank you.
It's awesome. I'm giving you claps
Oh,
because
thanks.
it was really very good, very good. I was going along and I would be have a question and the next slide I'd be like, "Oh, she answered that one. Check."
Good.
So, yeah, it was a really good presentation. Lots of good resources. How did you gather all those resources? Is it just like a tried and true method, or how did you come across these?
It's a team effort. Mike Stutz from our team is kind of our technology guru and created the app. And it's one important to us that, they're functional
Hmm.
resources that can be used.
Hmm.
And two, that we really maintain that focus on evidence-based practices. But a lot of times we'll be at events or a
Hmm.
district will share resources or we run across them in other newsletters.
Hmm.
And it's funny, our team is fun because they um, just share an ongoing passion for this work. And really, it's as much about helping students improve outcomes. It's really about serving the field and in making sure
Yeah.
that teachers and districts feel supported. And so we try to stay tuned in to those needs and meet them, where they
Yeah.
are.
Yeah. Yeah. I liked you had that one of your little bubbled things said money's helpful, but it's not necessary.
Right.
And I like that because so many people don't do some of the things that they could do because they think, oh, we just don't have any money. There's nothing at the district. But there are so many things you can do that require very little money or none at all,
Right,
and
right.
it's that little first step, especially when
Yeah,
you have parents that didn't graduate from high school and there's just not a big emphasis on finishing, and so there's lots of things out there that are available for that. How
right,
do you get parents involved or on board when they really just don't see the value of what's going on?
right. I mean, I think that's the eternal question, and I
Mhm.
think the most important thing we can do is show our students that we know them and we
Mhm.
see them,
Mhm.
and that we care and
Mhm.
believe in them,
Mhm.
right? And then mentoring those students. I think, obviously it's important to get families engaged through strategies, such as meetings and events, but some parents are not going to come to the table.
Mhm.
They're not going to come to the IEP meeting. But calling out to those students, that are represented in those families is critical.
Yeah, yeah.
And is the access point, right? I mean, if we
Mhm.
can get them in school, we can.
Yeah,
So it's
yeah.
really about attendance.
Yeah, 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 for sure, for sure.
Right.
Yeah, yeah. That's half the battle. That's half the battle with my own kid, and
Yeah.
he was okay with school. That was
Right.
half the battle, just getting him up and getting him moving,
Right.
So you sometimes really have to impress upon their kids for them to know their own personal worth, for them to find out that, what, this is important for me to do this, and I do need to break the cycle, I guess you could
Right.
say,
It's
and get
amazing.
out.
And I think it's amazing when you see, like, I think with I have a 16-year-old son, and how motivating it is when they feel
Mm,
the care of a good
mm,
teacher.
Oh
Um,
gosh, yeah.
it changes everything.
Sure does. Sure does.
They'll work for our
Yeah.
teachers that
Yeah. Yeah.
show that
Yes. Yes, they
care and
will.
belief, right? If you
Yeah.
believe
Yeah.
in me.
Yeah. I
Um,
mean, I don't know how many, just from my own personal experience as a classroom teacher, how many times kids say, "Well, I just came to school today because of your class," and we
yeah,
we were block scheduling, so I'd see them every other day. They say, "I just came to school today for you," and I would be so touched by that. But then I'd be like, "But you need to be here every day." So
right, right, right,
but it really does take just one teacher to make that investment, and you will turn a kid around for life. It really
right.
does. And I don't think teachers, educators generally don't realize that power and that you can get a kid back on track just by saying, "Hey, I'm glad you're here today. I didn't see you
Hmm.
yesterday, so
Hmm.
I'm glad you're here today." And kids would say, "I didn't even know anybody knew I wasn't here."
Right.
So.
Yeah.
Well, I think that your presentation was fabulous. And so all of the information will be in the webinar Wednesday. You're going to get that, PowerPoint, and have access to all of Joy's fantastic resources. So we absolutely delighted that she was with us today. As always, you can go to the Education Associates website, and on there you will find a plethora of resources to be able to help you to find the funding that you need, to be able to find the solutions that you need to be able to help your kids advance further and enjoy being in school. Not all kids love school. I mean, I was a teacher and I didn't really love school, but but I loved the work. I loved meeting the goals and the challenges. And so having those out there for kids is really such a benefit to them finishing. Can also find all of our newsletters. Sam does a fabulous job at putting out our newsletters. You in the know. We are in the process. I feel like I say this every Wednesday webinar, but we are in the process of updating our kits. All of our kits, I promise you. And we're updating
Continuous
our
improvement.
life skills and really putting a fresh look on that. And so if you have the newsletter, you can know in advance. And we'll probably have some great contests around those kits and just really try to get people as excited to see updates as we are to do the updates. We can always connect with you. We have our reps that are out there. I'm also a person you can reach out to. Sam's a person you can reach out to if you need some help. You don't know where to start because there's a lot of stuff that we offer. And if you just need to know where to start, we are there to help you figure that out. Again, the resources page is where you can go to find a lot of information about our funding and a lot of how we got part of that case endorsement, how we got the Department of Education endorsements, and see all the great things that we offer out there. We have lots of stuff. Our website is packed full. So go visit, go see, and you'll find lots of helpful information. This is where, I mean, Sam's going to send you a link with that, but you can also go see past webinar Wednesdays in there. Lots of great topics that we talk about. We really are proud of the people that we have come and speak at our Wednesday webinars because we know they offer lots of great information. Again, the funds that we offered. I just talked to a district here in Florida not that long ago that wanted to purchase. They didn't have any money, not enough money anyway. And so we went through this website and talked about the funding and the different options that are out there for you to be able to find the money. Again, our Gary Bates Award, I love it. It's $1,000, and I know every educator could use $1,000 to help benefit kids for sure. And so it's out there. Nominate yourself, nominate someone else. There's 5, 6 questions I think that you have to answer, and we're really trying to see not just our products in action, but you in action, and know those ways that you've been able to bring out the best in your kids. And then our Facebook group, and join that and see about other educators and be of the first to know about all there is to know about education associates. We're just super happy that you joined us today, and you have the contact information for Joy. You have it for Sam and I if you have any questions about what's going on or you want to know anything. And just thank you all for being here. And I hope you have a fabulous rest of your week. If you're like me, today is Tuesday, not Wednesday. So I'm a day behind. I have been a day behind. So I hope that the rest of your week is fabulous. Reach out if you have any questions.
Thank you, everyone. And thank you, Joy, for that amazing presentation.
Yes, thank you so much.
Thank you for the opportunity.
All right.
All right, bye. Until next time.
Now I got it. All right.